Hello all, it's John again, the old geek, and today I'm taking a look at the third module in the Slavers series, A3, Assault on the Aerie of the Slave Lords. It is blowing a bit of a gale outside at the moment, so if you hear the odd whistle and howl, it's not me, there's nothing stuck in my attic. Now before I dive into this one, I need to give you all a bit of a heads up. Every review I've done so far has been based on running the module's material largely as intended. Typically, the first time I run a module, I try where possible to stick closely to the original text. My tweaks are minor. I go off script a little more if I run the module second, third, or even a fourth time. Examples of my typical changes might be altering Lareth's motives in T1 in order to make that module lead nicely into UK2 and UK3, or taking certain encounters from U2 in order to flesh out the environment around the moat house in T1. And as I mentioned in the review to A1, I fleshed out the city of Highport to give that module a bit more depth. The A series is very much a linear series. While not quite as linear as the Dragonlance modules, there are similarities with the Desert of Desolation modules, for example, in that everything is meant to be attempted in a specific order, with certain events and discoveries tying the modules together. This is where my group hit a problem with the series. My party failed to complete A2. They didn't defeat Marquesa and didn't discover the information needed to take them to A3. Strictly speaking, they died, but I didn't want the series to end, so I had them captured instead. Those who know the finale of the series will understand why, as A4 begins with a party as prisoners of the slave lords, attempting to flee their dungeon. But they are supposed to be captured in A3. Thus, in terms of the linear flow of the storyline, we bypassed this module, but I'd bought it, read it, and wanted to give it a chance. Thus, when my party were fleeing A4, attempting to escape from their captors, I ran them through sections of A3 backwards. So yes, that's my own experience with this module. So take my opinions with a pinch of salt, if you wish. A3 was written by Alan Hammack and has the same Gen Con tournament origins as the rest of the series. It was published in 1981. It also has one of the greatest names of any of the modules in this era. Assault on the Aerie of the Slave Lords. How dynamic does that sound? Assault on the Aerie of the Slave Lords. Awesome. Much more evocative than the village of Homlet or In Search of the Unknown. Presentation first then, as usual. Aside from the great name, this module boasts a typical Jeff D image as its cover art. More than a little cartoonish, with rippling muscles and skin-tight clothing. However, it works, as a central character in the image looks suitably imposing. The back cover is an Errol Otis piece, showing the party fighting an Ankylosaurus. It's the usual Otis oddness, not his best piece, but it does the job. The module itself is a 28-page booklet split into 3 main sections. 2 dungeon crawls with a city chapter in between. Internal art is much better and more plentiful than it was in A2, and the maps are easier to read, which is a relief. Text is also clear with lots of useful bolding of important information. But just 14 of the 28 pages detail the locations of the adventure. There's 2 blank pages, 4 pages devoted to the tournament PCs, tournament notes, and more maps in the booklet. It all feels a little bit empty inside. The plot of the module is thus. Upon completion of the previous adventure, the party learn of the slavers' main hideout, a hidden city within the Drakensgrab Mountains, and the location of a network of caves that give access to this city. The first part of this adventure deals with their trek through these caves. The second relates to the city itself, and the third involves them confronting the slave lords themselves in catacombs beneath the city. This all sounds like it should be pretty epic. But all of this in just 14 pages of text. The first chapter, where the party plunge deep under the mountains through the secret tunnels, is just a linear tournament dungeon with 9 disjointed encounter areas. The map feels like, well, it feels nothing like a cave complex. It looks like something generated using the random dungeon generation tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide. It is a tournament section after all, but it makes no attempt to hide that. Not even a half-hearted one. Yes, there are some fun and dangerous encounters, and yes, they will serve the purpose required by the tournament setup, but they desperately need work for a campaign use. It's just a linear trudge from one challenge to the next, a mediocre attempt at a mini funhouse. Okay, with that chapter out of the way, let's move on to the city itself. Suderham is its name, the focal point of the slavers' nefarious network. The text talks about a walled central city surrounded by slums. Surely, this is where the module redeems itself, with seedy backstreets, a criminal underworld, rival guilds battling for dominance. And yes, some locations have been nicely fleshed out. A local bully in the tavern, a house of ill repute, a gambling den. But listen to this. Area B36, cloth warehouse, closed. Area B37, fruit and preserved meat storage, closed. Area B38, oils warehouse, closed. Area B39, lumber warehouse, closed. Area B40, stone and brick warehouse, closed. And there are many, many more. Thus, the city of Suderham and all of its environs are woefully underdeveloped. Yes, I get the intention that the DM is meant to put some work in to juice things up for campaign play, but this is a joke. As I said earlier, it's a 28-page booklet, with blank pages in that total count. There's no excuse. If we buy a product, we at least expect some meat on the bones, plot hooks, interesting NPCs to interact with, not blank space to fill with random encounters. Right, let's move on to chapter 3, the finale, the showdown with the bad guys. It's another linear tournament dungeon with more tournament style challenges. Again, they serve their purpose, they're fun, they don't make a lot of sense, but that doesn't matter too much if they are enjoyable. And they're tough too. And who doesn't enjoy a challenge? But there's challenge, and then there's what is forced on the party here. This module is designed to put the party in the final module of the series. Capture them, imprison them. So it does this by pitting them against 5 high-level slave lords. This is Tracy Hickman level of railroading, a couple of years before Tracy Hickman even appeared on the scene. It is truly an epic encounter, and yes, I can see it being memorable. Again, I'll admit that I've not run this bit, as it didn't fit the fleeing from the city line that my campaign needed. But it all reads so damn clumsy. In my opinion, A3 is the absolute nadir of this series. It showcases all that is wrong with both tournament adventures and lengthy module sequences, and offers nothing in the way of expansion. For all its faults, at least the previous module did make a genuine attempt to expand on the tournament material, but this module, nothing. It's simply 2 utterly linear dungeon crawls, a lazy town section in between, and a scripted ending to the second of the dungeons. The empty pages, the amount of closed locations, the lack of player choice. It's all such a shame because some of the encounters are fun. The Ankylosaurus in the Erolotus image. It's a rust monster covered by an illusion. Great! But there's simply not enough of those. And the whole effort feels like it was rushed out. It should have been 32 pages with 2 cardboard outer covers, freeing up the booklet to go into details about Suderham and its slums and make it come alive. Too much of that is left up to the DM. Yes, we expect to do some of the work, but we don't buy adventure modules to then find we're expected to do all of it. A3, Assault on the Aerie of the Slave Lords, gets a whopping 3 out of 10. Great name! The setup promises so much, but ultimately it delivers so little. Now then, I suppose it's over to you to call me rude names, tell me I know nothing, insult my parentage. Fire away in the comments. My next review will be A4. Till then, bye!